Hello and welcome to PMCLounge.com. This is Lounge Fever, a series of videos where we try to answer your questions. And since we recently covered story points and user stories, we got a question around story points. How many story points to assign to a story? As simple as that. Now, if you're interested in other questions that we have answered around Agile, you may have similar questions as well. So check out the first link in the description. That is the entire playlist. Also, second and third links are important if you are preparing for your PMP exam or your PMI-ACP exam. The Agile playlists, second and third link, they are going to be very, very helpful. We have covered every single Agile concept that you should know when you are preparing for these certifications. All right, let's talk more about this question in the coming slide and we'll understand this question, and I'm pretty sure this is going to help you out as well. Quick reminder, please hit the like button and help us spread the word. Okay, so is 3 is equals to 3 across the board? That's the crux of the question here, right? How do you ensure that 3 carries the same weight across the board? Every single Scrum team member have the same understanding when they see the number 3 as story points on top of a user story. So 3 story points could mean a different weight or different effort for one Scrum team member who is very liberal in assigning story points versus another Scrum team member who has a conservative approach in assigning story points, right? So I hope you see the problem here. How do you ensure that all the team members have the same understanding of the effort represented by story points? So how do you ensure that every single Scrum team member, when they see 3 story points, they have the understanding of the kind of effort 3 story points require, and they have the same understanding? Because like I said earlier, someone who's very liberal in assigning story points, they may think 3 is relatively lower number, but someone who has a conservative approach in assigning story points, they may see 3 as a relatively higher number. So how do you ensure that everyone has the same understanding of the effort required when they see a number, when they see the story points number, right? That's the crux of the question here. Now, what do you basically do here is you start with one story point. So most of the teams, they are going to decide what one story point really means. So let's take an example, right? So it can be something which is very simple, and it should be so simple that every single Scrum team member should be able to understand. So if you're creating, let's say, a web application or a website, you will say that adding a button with some functionality means one story point. So every single Scrum team member will now have an idea of the kind of effort required when it comes to one story point. So if they see a user story and they assign one story point, they kind of understand the kind of effort required, right? Because they know that it should be equivalent of adding a button with some functionality. That's one story point. So when they see 3 story points, they all of them should have a fair idea of the kind of effort required. That's the whole point, and that's why you start with one story point. If you're a total newbie to the world of project management, check out our free training, Project Management for Non-Project Managers. You can head over to pmclounge.com/pm for non-PM. This is a totally free, around 3 hours training, and thousands of people have benefited from it. Check it out. So now that you have one story point baseline, right? The definition of one story point that's jotted down, agreed upon baseline, right? The rest of the team can now understand the possible point ranges and they can think along the same scale because now they understand what one story point means, what is the kind of effort one story point represents. So now they will be able to see what 3 story points really mean or what 7 story points really mean. Now, some teams, they use a practice called t-shirt sizing and they assign all the stories based on t-shirt sizes like small, medium or large. They can even use XS, S, M, L, XL, right? And they assign the values to these t-shirt sizes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or they can even use Fibonacci sequence like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on and so forth. So basically, the entire team has a fair idea of what 8 story points mean. They have a fair idea of what 2 story points mean. All of that because they agreed upon the definition of one story point. Everybody understands the kind of effort one story point would require. The aim here is to be consistent in how points are assigned to stories. That's the whole idea, right? So no matter if you are someone who's very liberal in assigning story points, or if you're someone who's very conservative in assigning story points, everyone should have a broad, similar broad idea of what story points really mean and what is the kind of effort story points represent. Question for this video: how do you as a Scrum Master ensure that the Scrum team has the same understanding of story points? We just took an example of how you can define what one story point mean, and based on top of that you can then build. But how would you do if you were a Scrum Master? Would you do something similar, or do you have other real life examples? I would love to know them. Also, here's another question for you. As a Scrum Master, do you think it is your responsibility to ensure that the Scrum team members have the same understanding of story points? Let me know in the comments. Definitely looking forward to your answers. And that's all that we had in this video. I hope you were able to understand how story points represent efforts, right? Smash that like button if you got value out of the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay notified every time we upload new content. If you like our work and want to contribute, please do so at pmclounge.com/contribute. Thank you.